Welcome to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten. Hi, I'm Wendy. After I graduated with my master's in wellness management, I started my own company, T2 Coaching, Health, Fitness, and Sport. And I'm Kirsten, an athlete, vegan, life coach, and girl mom, running a business focused on helping others create a life they love. We are here to explore all things wellness to help you become the person you've always wanted to be. So if that's why you're here, open your ears and your mind as we tackle the world of wellness together.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Kirsten. How are you?
I am doing really well. I love Thursdays.
Yeah, we've talked about it plenty of times.
I know.
It's great.
I know. Good thing you don't if we recorded this like 2 days ago, I would be like, oh my God. But like once I wake up and it's Thursday, I'm like, okay, all is well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
It's good to have something to look forward to. Because we're going to talk about in this episode today, we're going to talk about burnout in just a few minutes. But that's one thing that really keeps me from burning out is having something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And having a day that's not so stressful in the week.
Yep.
So that's helpful. So before we dive into all that, what was your wellness win?
Well, I've had a few happen today. So number one, I went to the dermatologist and I had a spot. So I go to the dermatologist every 6 months because I've had a lot of sun exposure and I have fair skin. And I've had a lot of precancer cells removed, biopsied, stuff like that. So I found this spot. I was feeling this spot right here about a week ago. And I know from previous experiences, you gotta watch that. And so I went to the dermatologist today and they said, we're just going to freeze dry it off. If it doesn't go away in a month, we'll probably have to biopsy it. So that's a relief for me. That's a good thing for me. They didn't find anything. This 6 months ago they did. There's only been one time where I went 6 months, they didn't find anything. And if I go a full like 2 years without them finding anything, then I only have to go once a year.
Oh, nice.
They always find something. So they didn't today. So that was a huge win.
So did they freeze it?
They just freeze dried it off. Yeah.
Okay.
The second wellness win is I got to see the sunrise because every day I get to see the sunrise. It's just, for me, it gives me so much energy and so much happiness. I just am a sunrise sunset person. And, with the time change that happened last month, it's just schedule wise, I can't always see the sunrise and I really don't see the sunset anymore. I'm usually inside. It's 8 o'clock. I'm leaving town. I'm not going anywhere to see the sunset. So I could if I wanted to, but I choose not to. So that made me happy. And then my training wellness win is I'm finishing up my 3-week taper. I decided to do a 3-week taper for my upcoming race. And I ran down Kennesaw Mountain, this like 0.8 mile section. I ran it in 8 minutes. And my previous best was a week ago in 9:20.
Oh my God. That's huge.
So that tells me, number one, the taper obviously is working. It's working. Number two, the way I run downhill, especially since my knee broke, I've kind of gotten accustomed to a certain style. Maybe it's what ultra runners do when they run downhill, because I know a lot of fast ultra runners and I've always struggled with downhill running. But I think I figured out what works for me. And I've suspected, based on my last 250Ks, that I think I figured it out. But Kennesaw Mountain is, the trail is 0.8 miles with about 500 feet of elevation loss. And so to do it on that hill that I do every week, it's kind of like my assessment. And I just was like, I was just overwhelmed with happiness that I can run downhill at that speed, because I wasn't even running down that hill at that speed before I broke my patella. So the fact that I was able to do it post patella just makes me get more confidence in the races that I like to do, because I like to do races with a lot of elevation gain and loss. And when I started ultra running again in 2021, I had done just a few in Colorado, and then I moved here in 2016, and I started again in 2021. I just struggled so much. And it's like during an Ironman, when you're bonking on the run, you question your life decisions. Why am I out here? I'm an imposter. I don't deserve to be out here. I'm not a trail runner. This always happens to me. I suck downhill, blah, blah, blah. And even if that happens to me, like in my upcoming race, I know it's not true, because I proved myself that I can run downhill with rested legs. So it's exciting to me.
Yes, that's super exciting. I have a little hill repeat thing I do, and it kind of tests like where I'm at. It assesses where I'm at. And when I first start doing it, or for the season, my first time of the season, I'm like just average for that, you know, for the whole time I'm running. Like if I can average under 10 minutes for the whole, cause it's up and down, I'm happy. And then as the season progresses and I do it once a month, and I start averaging 9:45, 9:30, 9:15. Right. And we've talked about taper before. And if you're doing your taper correctly and your taper is working for you for this race in the body that you're in, you're going to see these times drop during your taper.
Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my wellness win was going to be my Horsetooth half marathon because I did really well. But for some reason, when you were talking, I thought about something else that is a more of a wellness win, because I've been doing Horsetooth half marathon since 2001, and I do really well sometimes. I do not so well sometimes. I did great this time. Nothing good, bad. It was exactly as expected. But what was a big wellness win for me this week is I got a new stripe on my belt in jiu-jitsu. And for those of you who are like, I have no idea what that means, because I would have had no idea what that meant 6 months ago. So I started jiu-jitsu in October last year. So it's been 6 months. My daughter was doing it, so I told her I would do it as well. I'm only down to going once a week just because of scheduling. They changed their schedule a little bit. My schedule changed a little bit. So going once a week is like trying to learn how to swim and only practicing once a week. Mm-hmm. So it's very technical, and it's drills that you have to do over and over and over again. So I keep relating jiu-jitsu and swimming, learning to swim from ground zero, as very, very similar, which is why I've kept going, because I trust the process of learning drills and practicing over and over and over, and eventually you'll know how to swim. Mm-hmm. And so I figure if I just keep going to jiu-jitsu, eventually I'll know what I'm doing.
And I'm going to interrupt, because same with me. Like, I go to Kennesaw Mountain every Thursday. At least I probably missed 2 Thursdays due to weather since the new year. But I usually don't do it in the summer due to schedule. I don't do it every week, but I still do it. But probably starting back in September, I've done it like every Thursday, almost every Thursday up until now. So it's like, you got to practice. You got to do the skills. You got to do the sport specificity if you're trying to get better at something, else you're not going to.
Right. Right. And that's why I do the Horsetooth half every year, is because it's 4 weeks, usually 3 or 4 weeks before the St. George half Ironman, which is very hilly. So it's a perfect way to practice that. Mm-hmm. So jiu-jitsu is just so far out of my comfort zone. And a stripe, I actually don't know, like, I don't think there's any criteria for getting a stripe. For the kids, it's very structured, because they give a lot of stripes. They switch belt colors a lot to keep the kids excited and motivated to continue. Mm-hmm. But once you're an adult, there's only 5 belts, and you move up in belt when you get enough stripes and you have enough experience and you have a lot of years under your belt, which I don't have. But the stripe to me means that the instructor, the coach, noticed that I'm consistent and trying really hard. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 stripes on my white belt. But it's just like, they're few and far between. There's no like, oh, when you do this, you get this. It's just whenever the instructor decides like, oh, I can see the effort and I can see the consistency is starting to pay off, I'm going to give her a stripe.
Yay.
So if any of you guys do jiu-jitsu out there and you know about stripes, it's kind of a big deal, as far as just feeling like you're improving. Because there's no other way to tell. It's not. So I'm used to, like Wendy is, I'm used to a sport where I can time myself and see an improvement. And jiu-jitsu is like wrestling, like grappling, like you're on the ground rolling around with people and you're learning certain moves to do. So to me, it's not like, there's not if I was trying to make a SMART goal for jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't be able to come up with a specific measurable goal, mm-hmm. unless I was like competing or something, and then you get points, but I'm not competing.
Congratulations.
So I just have to go by. I haven't cried after jujitsu or during jujitsu for like a month. So
that's progress.
There's a win right there. I also gave the coach, he was really hungry and I had some protein bars in my backpack. So I gave him one. So that might've been why I got the stripe. Whatever. I'll take the stripe. So this week we are going to talk about burnout, and burnout is something that I'm sure we've all experienced to some degree in our lives, and maybe some more than others. Wendy and I can tell some personal stories, some things we've suggested to people that have helped them prevent it or deal with it when it's happened. But the two things I thought of that kind of like overview things that are really important to me in my own experience and helping other people in this, and we can define burnout too. But number one, you ideally want to get to the place where you're controlling or working on the things that are leading to burnout so that you don't go over the edge. Because once you're over the edge and burned out, it's a lot harder to recover from that. Whereas when you're feeling like you're getting close to burnout in any area of your life, if you can kind of do some damage control and reel it in a little bit, you're going to be much more successful and it's going to be a lot easier. So that's the first thing I was thinking, kind of an overall thing. The other thing is burnout, whatever you're doing that's making you feel burned out or making you feel like hopeless or any of those feelings that come along with it are not going to go away on their own. So whatever you're doing that's causing you to burn out, you can't just ride it out because it's just going to escalate and get worse and worse and worse. So the sooner you can recognize it and nip it in the bud and start to recover from that, I feel like the better chance you have, because once you're kind of over that edge and you're completely burned out, it's going to be a really long process coming back, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, any part of wellness that Wendy and I talk about. It's going to be a lot more challenging and time consuming, energy consuming, and you're going to have to give up a lot more once you're past the point of no return.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, why don't you talk about what burnout is, some of your experiences?
Yeah, I think burnout, there's usually some sort of physical and mental exhaustion. The words like lack of desire to want to do something, I think is high on my list for burnout. I don't feel like I've ever necessarily experienced burnout in my sport as a swimmer, K through college, and then as a multi-sport athlete for the last 33 years and now ultra runner. Because the thing about being a multi-sport athlete is there's a lot of things to focus on. So when you take the sport of triathlon, you can focus on a single sport while you're doing multi-sport. You can focus on the various distances while you're doing multi-sport. So that has kept me from burnout from my sport, and the fact that I love doing what I do and I have a strong why for my mental and physical well-being keeps me from that burnout state. I have felt burnout as an age group swim coach. So I had coached youth swimming, high school swimming, basically my whole life. So high school swimming for 9 years. I got that job, started that job in 2008 or 2009. But I was an age group swim coach since I was 16 years old. Started with summer league and then kind of advanced. And so when I moved to Georgia in 2016, I'm like, no, I'm done with the kids. That was definitely burnout. I wouldn't have necessarily defined that as burnout back then because I really never thought about it, but it was definitely burnout. So I did not coach kids. It only lasted 2 years. I just needed a break. And then I was like, oh, I miss that age group. I miss the kids. I always wanted to be a secondary education teacher, high school, junior high. So I really am attracted to that age group. I have had so many influences in my life, especially my coach when I was in high school. So I feel like I bring that to the table with that age group. So I started coaching the swimming again. And I've been the head coach for 8 years. And I've experienced burnout to the point where, again, lack of desire. it seems repetitive. I'm not getting any new kids to sign up. It's the same kids day in and day out. They're not as motivated as I was when I was their age. So a lot of things that I tried to implement that impacted me so positively as an age group swim coach where I am now wasn't effective because it was a USA swim team. Before I was coaching, age group swimmers that weren't necessarily the USA swim team, the high school group, for example. And so I was just kind of frustrated. I didn't want to go coach anymore. I'm like, sometimes when I would have a week off over spring break, I wouldn't want to go back. Like, I just really enjoyed that week off. I had some time in the evenings. I enjoyed being home. And then again, when I broke my knee and I had 5 months off, that helped me recover from the burnout because I thought I was ready to end my job coaching there. And then I broke my knee and I was forced to have 5 months off. And I came back with a renewed energy, a renewed focus, a renewed desire. And I'm still there, because I always, again, when I'm ever feeling those moments of, this is my last year, I always focus on my why and my reason. Well, why am I doing it? And what is life like if I'm not coaching there anymore? And I like the idea of still being there versus the idea of saying I'm completely done with that group of swimmers. I know I can take a break and then go find a new group that I want to coach. But right now, you develop relationships with these kids. You have a very positive impact on their livelihood. Sometimes I say some things to them that I'm like, oh my God, that's going to impact the rest of their life.
Right.
And it's just my personality being given off to them, but yet they're getting it. And so yeah, that's where that's really the situations that I've felt that burnout.
Right.
Like the desire.
So it sounds like, and I have the same sort of experience as you because we have similar type of jobs where there are some breaks. Like we take, at the end of April, the kids I coach off season, we take a break because everyone 2 weeks later is going to be starting summer swim team. So we have a couple weeks. So we have these breaks and we don't come back after summer swim team. We have a break in August. So the same thing, my jobs, the way that they are situated, we have built-in breaks that help with that. So like when I used to coach middle school, I coached middle school swim team for 15 years and it was 75 kids in a 6-lane pool. Half of them couldn't swim and it was middle school kids. So they were all a little crazy. And like a week before or 2 weeks before the end of the season, I'd be like, it's a 3-month season. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. I'm stopping after this season. But then it's over and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And then 9 months goes by and I'm ready to go again. So
yeah. And that's what I liked about high school swimming. I would coach the 2.5, 3 months of girls season, 2.5 to 3 months of boys season. And then I'd have 6 months off because the school year was done. And so I had that break from those types of relationships and those types of kids. So that was really good for me. But year round swimming, the only break we have is 1 week over spring break. And then there's periods of days off due to holidays. And so it's a commitment. It's more of a commitment than I've ever had. And the fact that I've lasted 8 years is saying something because I've never had a coach longer than 3 years at the location that I'm at. So taking breaks, whatever kind of burnout you're experiencing is what you need to do to kind of.
So people don't have jobs like us that there's some scheduled breaks. What do you recommend? Because I agree, taking breaks from the things that add pressure to your life that feel a little overwhelming or stressful or give you anxiety, taking these breaks. So if people don't have these automatic breaks in their life, like if they have 4 kids and they can't, they're like, oh, there's no break scheduled for the next 18 years or a job that's not seasonal like our jobs. That's more like a 9 to 5 every day, same thing for the rest of your life until you quit. What would you suggest to those people who are feeling like, oh, you guys are lucky you get these little breaks?
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're frustrated, feeling stressed, anxiety with anything, you got to go back to your why of why you started it. Why did you start that job? Why did you start that sport? Why did you have kids? Why did you get married? Why did you develop these certain relationships? Go back to those whys. Usually it's, all fun and games in the beginning, and then life happens. So going back to those things that bring you joy within that area that's causing you current burnout. Think about the things that bring you joy. Think about the why you started. Talk to someone. Therapy is always a win for anything you're going through, is having that person to talk to, whether it's a therapist or a friend or a family member. And again, I think just there's always something positive to a negative situation if you think hard enough.
Yeah. I would also add, schedule time for yourself, even if you don't think you're a person who loves alone time. Like I know people who, like my sister, I feel like all her spare time, she'll be like, oh, what friend can I go? Like she'll do girls trips now that her kids are all gone. She'll do girls trips. She does book club. So her, a lot of her discretionary time is spent in groups and with other people because that's what she enjoys. But even if you love doing that, I think it's really important to spend some time alone, because then you can reflect on those things that you just talked about. You can figure out, okay, what do I need to refuel, to, get back on the horse, to get excited about my life again.
Right. And another thing is, if you're feeling a burnout, especially something like a job situation or a job project, how long is that project going to last? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? So you may be in the thick of something going on at work or in a relationship, but again, you're alone. You have more time to process something. Think about, is there a deadline? And once you meet that deadline, your time is going to free up,
Right.
or whatever the situation is that's causing the burnout. Again, finding the cause is like, diagnosing an injury. You got to find out what the cause is. You got to find the diagnosis of a potential injury so you can treat it.
Right.
So what's causing the burnout is an important thing to reflect on, to be able to find strategies to get you through it.
Right. And something that you just reminded me of, one of my life coach clients just texted me this morning, and I was like, oh, that's what we're going to talk about. The last couple weeks, she has been not doing her workouts, eating and drinking things that she doesn't typically want to put into her body. She's been not sleeping well. She's been really stressed. She's had a lot on her plate that was like building up to the point where she was like, I don't know how much longer I can handle this. And then she sent me this text this morning. I'm going to read it just because it's like exactly what we were saying. And I'm not going to mention her name, but she said, she mentioned a few things that were going on. And then she said, amongst that and a slew of other negative things just all piled up at once, but now they are all gone.
Yeah.
Like after 2 weeks of her literally like feeling like she was going to explode, all those things that were making her feel that way are now dissolved. Whatever they all were, some things were work, some things were personal, some things were family oriented, and now they're gone.
Yeah. And what a huge weight. What a great feeling.
Yeah.
And that tends to be the case. If you sit down and reflect, question why you're burned out, what caused it, and you're more likely to come up with strategies of, oh, well, I can't get out of it now because I know I have a deadline, or I have to speak to like a therapist to get out of this horrible relationship I'm in, or the time alone helps you process what's going on. I think it's like we've already talked about.
Yeah. So one thing, if you're looking for something practical that you can do that's along the lines of what we're talking about right now, we've talked about brain dumps before. I think we've talked about them 5 times. So apparently there's something that's really beneficial. But doing a brain dump in the way of what are all the things in my life that are causing me stress, anxiety, overwhelm, that make me feel like I can't like keep going, that make me feel hopeless, that make me feel like I'm going to explode, that I can't go one more day like with a life like this. Like write down all those things. And then what I would do first is go through and cross everything off that you have no control over. Because I think as adults and humans, we take on a lot more than what we have control over. So like if one of the things is like, Wendy won't call me back. Like, why won't she call me back? This is so frustrating. I'm like, I can't handle it. Wendy won't call me back. That's out of my control. Like I can be like, hey, Wendy, call me, which by the way, I don't talk on the phone, so I would never say that. But that's something that it's up to Wendy. So things that are out of my control. So like if a family member is mad at me and is giving me the silent treatment right now, that might be something that is like weighing so heavy on my heart. And that might be something that's adding to this overall feeling of I can't go on. And it's something that I have no control over. So you might have a list of 50 things, like there's too much laundry, there's too many dishes. Like right now, if whatever I want to wear, I'm wearing Christmas pants right now. Just FYI, you guys can't see it. Ugh, Christmas pants. All right. Because I have so many piles of clean clothes because I cannot keep up on laundry. It takes me 5 minutes to find 2 socks that match. And that drives me crazy. And it's so overwhelming. So I might add that to my list. Everything, add to your list, cross off what you have no control over, because you have to let those things go for your mental and emotional health. You have to cross off those things. And then you're left with a bunch of things that you can, like Wendy said, notice and maybe start working toward. So I might have 10 things left that are like really adding up. They might be small things. Don't worry, you guys, you don't have to have like a big traumatic thing going on right now for you to feel like you don't want to go on. Like it could be a lot of little teeny tiny things adding up. So let's say one of mine is laundry. Like every morning I want to cry because it's taking me I have to set my alarm 10 minutes early to find socks. And then I messes with my sleep and I'm so overwhelmed and frustrated with that. Then I'm going to take this list of things I can control and I'm going to pick one thing and spend 5 minutes on it. And the reason I say 5 minutes is because I believe that every single human on the planet can find 5 minutes in a day to do something for yourself. And for that 5 minutes, maybe I go through and I pick out all my socks and put them in a pile so that tomorrow when I'm looking for my socks, it's only going to take me a minute because my sock pile is a lot smaller than my 5 laundry piles.
So I really like what you were talking about is focus on the things you can control, cross off the things you can't control. Because a lot of times once you start recognizing some things that are causing the burnout or the feeling overwhelmed and anxiety are a lot of things that you have no control over. So spend more time on energy working on the things that you can control. So I have a friend that's working 2 jobs, and the other day she said she's over it because she's so overwhelmed because she's working so much. She doesn't have time to work on her own personal health and fitness. And so, I was encouraging her to say, you're working 2 jobs. You don't want to work on 2 jobs anymore. Let's take a step back. Let's have some alone time and create a budget. Maybe you don't need to work the 2 jobs. Maybe you just need to create the budget and spend within your means. Spend the money you're making with 1 job on the priorities that you need that money for. The basic, rent, utilities, taking care of your son, whatever the case may be. Until you have a budget, it's hard. It's going to be a lot harder to have 1 job or 2 jobs, or you need more jobs. making a budget, I think, creates a lot of more stress-free living when you have a budget, because money creates a lot of stress in people's lives.
Mhm.
And if you're feeling burned out with your job or jobs and you've never had a budget, that's the first thing I would do, is sit down and make that budget and cut out the things that you're spending money on, like a Starbucks coffee or certain treats or certain higher expensive food items that you really don't need presently at the moment. You can let that stuff go and shop at Walmart before you shop at Whole Foods, type of thing. And hopefully that'll help get you to see a clearer picture of the job you maybe can look for, and it pays you a certain amount of income so you can pay for those priority things in your life that you need to pay for. And hopefully that'll, just the change of jobs, the change of anything when you're burned out in a certain, about a certain thing in your life, change is good.
Right.
Even if it's a temporary change, it will give you some more energy and freshness.
Right. So one of the times that I got overly burned out, so I was working at full-time as a personal trainer and fitness instructor when I lived in Fort Collins. And I was so stressed about money all the time. And I had a ton of debt. And I felt like I just had to work all the time. And I also felt like I needed to take whatever personal training client wanted me as their trainer, because they wanted me. It wasn't my place to be like, oh, I don't have the time. I'm like, I need to make this work. So kind of more of a people pleasing mentality that I had. And so if you've ever been a personal trainer or hired a personal trainer, the majority of humans need to either work out in the morning or the evening. And so I was always working 5 a.m. I was always working 5 p.m. And then I would have some breaks in between the day, but they weren't long enough to really feel like it was a break. And I worked 7 days a week because I felt like I had to, not only to make the money, but also to please my clients. And I want to say, I used to know all the stats because I was really burned out. I think I went 6 years without taking a day off.
Mm-hmm.
0 days off. I worked Monday through Sunday, all through the day, different times through the day. Didn't take any time off until I was about to explode. I literally, like Wendy said, the loss of desire. I mean, I had lost that desire a couple of years before, but I kept pushing through and I kept pushing through. And this is why I think it's really important that you recognize the signs and don't push through, because then I was done. I took a month off. I was I didn't know any other solution, because it got so bad that I didn't, that in my mind, this is so bad that I'm saying this, but my clients would be talking to me, and in my mind, I'm like, I don't care about your stupid husband and your stupid fight. I was really and I had a lot of stuff also, because again, it wasn't just my job. I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that I didn't share with anybody. And so that was all in my head. So then when these people are complaining about their wrinkle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my relationship is about to explode. I don't care about your wrinkle. And these were the things in my head. And that's not fair to the person telling me the story, but it's also not fair to me to have all that stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And it got to the point where I couldn't go on. I couldn't show up to work the next day. And I planned it 2 weeks in advance, because I did have a lot of clients and I didn't want to leave them high and dry. And I said, and I was taking the month of September off. So I decided to do it for 2 weeks. Every client, I'm like, just so you know, I'm taking the month of September off. I can either write you out a training plan you can do on your own, or I can give you to another trainer while I'm gone. And I got mixed emotions. Some people were like, oh my gosh, good for you. And some people what am I supposed to do without you? And it made me realize how important my mental health was. And taking that time off, it was kind of like what Wendy said when she'd take spring break off. I did not want to go back. That's how I know. Even a month off, I'm like, I don't want to go back to this capacity. Like I wanted to still be at the gym. And that's when I started teaching less classes, subbing more classes, because subbing, and that's what I do mostly now. I only have a couple classes I teach. I sub because then I have if I'm like, oh, I have a pretty open week and I'm feeling like I want to give my energy to a bunch of people, I'm going to take this class and sub this class. And if not, I'm going to crawl up in my hole of my house and be by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And did you start passion parties during that time?
Yeah. Because I was like, so that was in 2005. And I started passion parties because I'm like, I can't go back to working full time at a gym. I was working like 80 hours a week at the gym. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so I did. I went online and I was like, well, I didn't go online yet. I was thinking, how can I make money without being somewhere all the time? And I was like, oh, sales. And I never thought I did sales, although I did. We should do a whole podcast on sales because selling is not like always selling a product. You might be selling your child on the fact that they need to eat a salad. You might be like selling is a really like important skill, in my opinion, to have for life. But I was like, oh, sales, I want to do sales. And so I went online and I was like, what can I sell? And then I'd never like done any sort of in-home party, but I'd heard about them. Like there's jewelry and makeup and all that stuff. So I went online and I was like, oh, what can I sell? And I found passion parties. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's in-home parties for women and you sell adult sensual products. This was something completely foreign to me at the time. Even my husband was like, do you even know what that is? I was like, I think. But I was like, this is an easy sell because it just like was something that I was willing to try. And I actually ended up being very successful at it for 10, 15 years. I actually just stopped 100% doing it maybe like 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But it was a great way for me to get out of the fitness industry long enough to recover from the burnout. I was able to make more money doing less. It gave me a lot of personal development and life skills that have helped me in my own businesses now. Mm-hmm. And it was so great for me. And then I was able to, I had the time to teach a couple classes I quit personal training then. And I actually quit personal training until like this year. And now that it's been 15, 20 years, I'm not burned out, but you guys the important thing is to learn from these things that caused you to get burned out. So when they were asking me to personal train at one of the gyms I work at, they asked me 2 years ago when my daughter was in preschool. And I said, no, I want to wait until she starts school. And so then she hit kindergarten, but I'm like, I'm not really, I want to be available to her and I want to still do my own thing. So finally, when she started first grade, I was like, okay, I want to start personal training, but I only want to do about 4 hours a week. And I don't want to train anybody who wants a trainer same time, same day, week in and week out on a regular basis. So I will train you if you have a goal you're working toward. You need me to write you out a training plan. We check back in every couple of weeks to see how you're doing, see how you're progressing, and we go from there. I'm not going to train anyone that's like, I want to train her Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 9 forever.
I don't like that either. And that's why taking this full-time year-round coaching thing, caused me a lot of stress and anxiety in the beginning, the first year. I'm like, oh my God, this is every day, every night at this time. But again, I adapted to it. It's fine. You just reminded me of my life before I moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2008. So I did make a move to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Before I made the move, my husband didn't work. I had all these mini jobs. I was coaching. I was doing City of Fort Collins wellness programs. I was a personal trainer. I was a full-time fitness aquatics director at the Fort Collins Club. So I had this full-time job, and then I had all these little jobs in between, trying to develop T2 coaching. I was doing private swim lessons and meeting athletes to coach for cycling, as well as like at the track for running. So I was going crazy again, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We moved. I had to leave it all behind. As sad as it was, and a few things that I really missed was the indoor triathlons that I started, and mostly the private lessons. I left that all behind. It was really hard. And at the same time, the job in Chattanooga where we moved to didn't work out. So when we decided to move back to Fort Collins, I got to pick and choose how I wanted to structure my jobs and my day. And in the end, I kind of redeveloped doing too much again, not only like half the amount I was doing, but it was still a lot, but over the years. So we moved back, we were only gone for a few months. So we moved back the same year, but I took a year. I didn't go back to the health club for a year because that was one thing that in the end was very toxic for me, but I gave it a year and then I was ready to go back. And so I tell this story because again, it's a learning opportunity. If you're able to step away like I was and move and just drop everything and able to come back and recognize what caused that burnout and what do you really want to do and how do you want to live your days, was very helpful. And then in 2016, when we moved to Georgia, it was, I had a year in advance notice that I knew we were going to move. And so I started letting go of the group coaching and really trying to develop my online coaching because I knew when I moved to Georgia, I didn't want to do group coaching anymore because I was a nobody. I was somebody in Fort Collins. I was a nobody here. And I didn't want to have to develop those relationships again because that took years and years and years and years to develop.
Right.
And so, now the full-time job is at home, which is great. And I get outside and coach the kids a couple hours a day. So it gets me out of the house. It gets me to a health club. It gets me a membership. It gets me outside of my home. And I still develop relationships in a different way. So again, the time alone, the recognizing the diagnosis and how to treat it is huge.
And learn. And like you said, and I said, like learning from it. So I do the same thing. So I waitressed for a really long time. And every time I would start working at a restaurant, I would tell myself, don't do anything extra. Like just do your job. And then since I didn't really like need to take breaks, like people would have smoke breaks or like they would want to take a break and eat. And I didn't really like taking breaks. Like during the downtime, I would like clean the coffee machine or like do some extra side work or do some things. And then then people would expect it. It just became like part of the job. And then all of a sudden I'm doing too much again. And then when I would like move or go to a new restaurant, I would always say, just do like your job. And I would always end up doing more. Like you said, there's some people I think just get in the habit of just being really busy and doing more for whatever reason. And so to recognize that and to say, because I noticed I just did that like a month ago when I was talking to my therapist. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was going to commit to 4 hours of personal training a week. And like, it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had like 10 that week. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? And she's like, why are you? I'm like, oh, good question. But part of it is the people pleasing thing. Like if somebody wants to train, if they put on their intake form, I want to train with Kirsten, to me, that's an honor. I'm flattered, I'm grateful, and I don't want to let them down. Like, I don't want to say, oh, our schedules don't work out. Then I'm like one of the mornings I met somebody at 5:30. I'm not a morning person. And one of the mornings that Cora was with her dad, this girl, she's like, could you do 5:30 on Friday morning? And I was like, I don't want to, but she really wanted me and she works during the day. And so I did it one time and I was like, the scheduling isn't going to work. So I have to kind of like rewind and go back to, like you said, kind of your why. My why is I love personal training, but only 4 hours a week. So I need to stick to that boundary. And that's I'm bad at boundaries. But that reminded me of when you were talking about relationships. You might be really burned out in your relationship, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a friend, a family member, a kid. And to me, like some of these people you can't get rid of, right? You can't be like, I'm just not going to see my kids for a month. I'm going to give my kids to their dad for a month. Like, you know, a lot of this is, when it comes to people and relationships, you can't just take a break from that unless it's somebody like, you could take a break from your friends. You can even take a break from your like extended family. It's hard to take a break from the people who live in your house if you want to still live with them.
Right.
But I feel like creating boundaries and protecting your energy is a good way to handle that, so it doesn't end up a full-blown fight, kicking people out of the house and you being done with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boundaries. I'm glad you brought that up. That's huge.
Yeah, that's really huge. What are there any other really simple things, Wendy, that you can think of that people can do if they start feeling like they're getting burned out on something?
No, I think we already talked about it. Recognizing it, finding time alone so you can process it, figuring out what is giving you the burnout, what caused the burnout. If there's a way to change things or get out of the situation that you're in. And if not, think about your why. Think about all the reasons you started doing whatever's giving you the burnout in the first place, and talk to someone about it.
Yeah. And if you guys have reached the point where you're already burned out, like you're done, like you don't give a crap about anything anymore, I would 100 million% recommend talking to somebody, getting into some therapy, checking yourself in somewhere. You can't do this alone. You can't do any of it alone, but especially if you've already gone over the cliff. And I actually have a story. When I was in this 6-year period of working constantly and being constantly stressed out, one of my really close friends had a mental breakdown. She got checked. She didn't choose her. It was a long time ago. So I'm trying to, you guys don't know her, and I'll probably get the story a little bit wrong, but her husband had called, I think, her parents, and they came and checked her into a mental institute. And she was there for a couple months. I went and visited her a few times, and I was so jealous of where she was. It was up in Fort Collins. She was in this room with a roommate. She was an athlete like me. I didn't know she had a creative bone in her body, but when I walked into her room was covered in art that she had been doing since she had been there. Mm-hmm. She had nowhere to go. They would like go to therapy like 5 days a week. 5 times a day. They made all her meals. She had nothing she had to do in life, but just be. And I was so jealous. I was like, oh, I wish I had like a mental breakdown. Not really, but I did think that at the time. So it's kind of like if you're, in a really bad relationship and it's stressing you out and you're like, oh, I wish he would just leave me, or I wish something out of my control would happen to force me into this rest, to force me to change, or to force this change in my life. Kind of like Wendy and I, like Wendy's patella, like we've talked about forced rest. Hopefully you guys don't have to get that far, so that if, some mental breakdown or some forced divorce or something horrible happens. So recognize where you're at, take some time to take some stock in your mental, emotional, and physical wellness. We talk about it every single week.
Set your boundaries.
Set your boundary. Oh, that's my definitely, I need to work on that. Thanks for the reminder. Thanks for bringing up my weaknesses, Wendy.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Do you have a listener question?
I do. And I just remember this. So one of my swimmers, she's graduating this year, and her last day of swim practice, her and her friend, I have 2 seniors, they decided it was April 23rd. There's a whole story behind that. Whatever. We'll save that for another day. But she asked me yesterday, she said, how do you know if what you're doing is healthy? Mm-hmm. And it all came to, I had been encouraging her to take a strength training class in college. Take a class, it commits you to working out. and you're going to learn a lot. As a female swimmer, athlete, in your life, you want to know how to strength train. You might as well start now when you're young and make it a habit. So you have it throughout your life, and you don't wait till you're 40, 50 years old in perimenopause and start to gain weight and realize, oh my gosh, I gained weight overnight. What do I need to do? And so I was encouraging her to take a strength training class. And also I was saying, she was going to miss a 25. And I said, it doesn't matter. And she's like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? I go, you're done swimming in a week. This is kind of for fun. It doesn't matter. You're in no competition. You're not training for anything. Who knows what swimming life is going to look like when you're done? So that's kind of how we started the conversation about health. And when she asked me, how do you quantify? That was it. How do you quantify health? And so it was a really good discussion I got to have with her. Again, that positive impact, that influence I am. I told her, it just depends on your goal. You can measure health by your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your bone health, your body weight, your lean muscle mass, body composition. You can measure health or fit and kind of leading in the fitness by swimming a certain distance or exercising a certain amount each week or each day. You can define health by just simply subjectively how you're feeling. Are you feeling energetic and stress level? Because she's a student. She's so highly stressed, taking 100 AP classes. I'm like, getting your stress level down is really good for your mental health. Doing, 20-minute walk every day while you're in college is really good for your mental health. And I've always tried to encourage her, when you're stuck and you're feeling stuck while you're studying and it's not really sinking in, you need to stop and take a break and go do something else, like a physical activity to stimulate your mind. And so just wanted to bring that up on the podcast about wellness, that health, there's many ways to measure if what you're doing is healthy for you or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you said, it all depends on your goals too, and where you're wanting to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could take those different ways of measuring to see, like, one of my measurements of my overall health and wellness is my peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I feel at peace with my life, who I am? On the days I'm not, I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, my overall wellness is low because my peace of mind is low, and I don't feel good about my life, and I feel frantic and anxious. And like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, my wellness is lower on the scale than Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to quantify it, I use the scale of 1 to 10 a lot with my athletes and my clients. It just, in every area of your life, if someone's like, oh, my finances suck, and I'm like, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being like, I'm about to lose my house, and 10 being, I have a huge retirement fund, like, where do you see yourself? And then, just go from there.
Yeah.
On that scale.
That's a good way to quantify everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's easier to get a handle on it, I feel like, when you can quantify it.
Yeah.
One thing that you reminded me of that I think it's really important to mention, because I think 98% of our listeners are female. Thank you, ladies. We love you. I was listening to a bunch of podcasts when I was driving to Utah a couple weeks ago. And one of them was on why women should strength train. And it wasn't mentioning like all the normal stuff that I mention to people, like bone density and muscle mass and injury prevention and, looking good, feeling good, energy, like burning calories. What this whole episode talked about was the proof, the data that all shows that when women do heavy strength training, it helps our hormones balance.
Mm-hmm.
And as women, even young women, would, like, people think hormones have to do with just like menopause and pre and post. But when you're a girl, when you're a female, every month your hormones are constantly changing with your cycle. So our hormones are all over the place, and strength training helps balance them. I thought the episode was like an hour, so I don't even remember any of the data. That just stuck in my mind because I think we're talking more and more about hormones these days, and women experience a lot of hormonal changes. So strength training can help with balance that as well.
Yeah. Good.
So it was a really good episode. So my listener question has to do with, or it's from one of my athletes, and he is trying to improve his cadence in his run. So I said, what do you want to work on right now? And he said, I want to improve my cadence. His cadence is typically about 150, which 150 per foot. So that's about a 75 cycle.
So I would say 150 2-foot strikes or 75 1-foot strikes.
Yes. So that's what his normal is. And that's really, really low. And this is, there's a little range that you want to be in, but that range is a lot higher than 150. It's typically around like 180 to 190 for 1-foot strike. Wait, how did you say it? You said
2-foot strikes, 180, 2-foot strikes, or 90.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is each foot strike, or half of that for the whole cycle of 1-foot strike. So
per minute.
Thank you. SPM, steps per minute. So there's all sorts of devices that you can count this. Like if you have an app on your phone, like I use, cause I don't wear a watch or anything, but Run Keeper, or there's like there's like 10 different run apps. So you don't have to have like a fancy watch, Garmin, Apple Watch, anything like that. But most people do. It'll tell you after your run what your average steps per minute are. So I just wanted to give 2 things that I think are really helpful, or actually 3 things. They're all very similar, and it's you have to teach your legs to move a little more quickly. So the 3 things I suggest are, number 1, just standing in place and moving your feet as fast as you can. So it's kind of like an agility drill. You're just on the balls of your feet, just pumping your feet up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, just to and do it for a minute, take a rest, go do something else, go do this every mile during your 5-mile run, just to teach your legs and your feet and your body to move faster. That's what agility does. And speed is a learned skill. So anybody can train their body to move a little more quickly. So that's something, a really simple drill. The other thing, one of the things that got me my steps faster and actually made me a lot faster runner is when I do hill repeats, and I don't do it as much now. This was like back when I was trying to become a faster runner. A lot of times people do hill repeats to get strong on the uphill. And this kind of goes along with Wendy's wellness win of her running downhill. So what I was doing is, I think I was even speed walking up the hill. Like I wasn't focused on the strength part or getting better at running uphill because I was already good at that. So I think I was speed walking up this hill. It was right by where I lived. It was maybe about the same as Wendy's, about 3/4 of a mile. Mine was on the pavement because I'd be wiping out if it was on the trail. So I would speed walk up and then I would run down it as fast as I possibly could. And it was scary. And I thought I was going to do somersaults and my legs were moving too fast for what I felt comfortable doing. But I did it every single week for an hour. And by the end of 12 weeks, I was running faster with more confidence and I wasn't nervous about it. And it made me a faster runner. So that's another thing that has worked for me that I would recommend. And then the third thing is, I like the elliptical for this because it's non-impact, so anybody can do it. Most ellipticals have a steps per minute on it. And when you first do elliptical, your legs are just kind of like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And you're like, yeah, I'm going pretty fast. And you look up and it's like 50 steps per minute. And you're like, oh, this is so low. But it's a way that you can have some measurable in the moment steps per minute that's non-impact. So if you are at a gym, you could do that as your warm-up for your run or your warm-up for your bike or something like that. So those are 3 really simple things you could do to increase your cadence. And I'm sure Wendy has some amazing ideas.
Well, I want to touch on that because I think running hills uphill and downhill, hills provide everything. You can run hills, get endurance, especially like if you're on a new trail or on a new road. Running up and down hills on trails, you want to see, well, what's ahead, and it gives you that endurance. It gives you the strength. Running uphill is more hamstring driven and it's going to strengthen your hamstrings and calves more, but it's going to give you overall leg strength, which is going to strengthen your running stride. Running uphill as well as downhill is good for your form. So endurance, strength, form. You work on your stride on the uphill. You work on the quicker leg speed on the downhill. And then you can also work on your speed. especially with the downhill. Strength precedes speed. Get your legs stronger. So when you are running downhill for your speed workout or for your running cadence workout, your legs are strong and they can handle that impact, because running downhill is going to give you a lot of more impact on your quads. And then you can do threshold. You can run up a long hill at your threshold heart rate. You're not going to be at your threshold speed because you're going uphill, but you can do it at like your threshold heart rate or your threshold power. And so when I was recovering from patella surgery, once I was able to run comfortably down the road, because I started with road before I got hit the trails, is I was running my speed workout, not at the track, but I was doing it on the downhills. And that helped my leg cadence come back, and that helped the impact on my quad get stronger, and that just helped with my speed. So I think hills on the bike and the run are the best form of training. If you only had to pick one, do hills, because they provide all those components: strength, speed, technique, threshold, tempo. You can do everything up and down a hill.
Right.
And then what I used to do when I first started learning about cadence back in the early 90s is I would be on a treadmill and there'd be a mirror and I could watch myself, and I would just start by moving my feet faster at any speed. So I would try to put the speed high, because when you run at a higher speed, your legs tend to have to keep up with the treadmill. And then I would try to keep that leg speed at a lower speed. So whether I was running a 12-minute mile, 10-minute mile, 8-minute mile, 6-minute mile, I tried to keep my cadence the same no matter what the speed was. That actually helped me a lot. And then working on form, like a forward lean, landing midfoot. Landing on your heel is going to lower your cadence. So making sure you're working on a midfoot landing, driving your knee forward, bringing your heel up to your butt. And again, doing this with a mirror is very helpful.
Right.
So yeah, that's my running spiel.
I know your secret, how you became a faster runner.
How?
Running with Quinlan, and what was your other dog's name?
Quinlan and Wenzel. So I used to run with my dogs, and my dog Quinlan pulled me to a 17:53 5K at a race. It was a fire hydrant race in Eudora Park in Fort Collins. There were all these firemen there. I was in the start line because I knew Quinlan and I could run fast. I'd put a waist belt on. She would pull me 17:53 5K, and all these firefighters in the beginning were like, dogs to the back, dogs to the back.
And you're like,
my friend Tony Dragon, who was a firefighter, said, no, she's okay up here. Right. And I stayed right behind Tony. He beat me, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm like running as fast as Tony is. And so, yeah, running with my dogs actually probably helped a lot. I would do fartlicks, but then I would call them dog farts. If you don't know what a fartlick is, it's speed play where it's unstructured speed play. So when I would run with my dogs, I would let them pull me for a distance at a certain pace, and then they would stop and sniff. So we'd recover, and then they'd pull me again and we'd recover. And it was really fun.
I know. I just remember like all of a sudden when you started running with your dogs, you started getting really fast.
Yeah, that was definitely helpful.
Nice. So what are you most excited for coming up this week?
I'm meeting my sister, my mom, and my niece, and we're going to go on a picnic.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I have my last long training weekend before I start kind of tapering for my race. And I have a big full weekend planned because I don't have my daughter this weekend, of lots and lots of training, including many hills.
Love it. I love hills.
I know. I'm so excited. So that wraps up Burnout. I hope you guys that this was helpful to you, because burnout is a very serious thing. It's not to be taken lightly. And there's no like measuring scale for burnout. It's how you feel. So if you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be burned out because I don't even work full time, and my other friend works full time and her husband has cancer and she has 4 kids and this and that, don't compare yourself to other people. If you feel unmotivated, lethargic, burned out, make some changes for yourself. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of it.
Right. And in another episode, I want to talk about overtraining, because if you're an athlete and you're thinking your burnout is overtraining, it's not the same.
Yes, 100%. So this is more like Wendy said, like the motivation to like get out and life.
Lack of desire.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week.
Make it a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Wellness Made Easy with Wendy and Kirsten. If you want to learn more about us, or anything we talked about today, check out the links in our show notes. We would love to know what you think of our podcast and what you want more of. So drop us a comment, send us a message, and help us out by leaving us a rating and a review. And don't forget to let us know your wellness win for this week. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day.